We're doing POSTCAST versus who are we playing today? Let's do that was versus the Thunder on February 6th, 2024. Save. All right, join us on YouTube. There we go. Video link, copy link address. And then let's get this shared across all our socials. Welcome in to Salt City Hoops Live. Talk about this resounding Utah Jazz victory versus the Oklahoma City Thunder. We're going to get this shared across as much as possible. All right. Make sure we get this all posted in the various Discords that we have going on. I'm thrilled that you're here joining us today. It's been a minute because it's been a few. So I can't really do East Coast games because of the 5 o'clock start or 6 o'clock start for Central games. And on Thursdays, I can't do Thursdays because of an ongoing commitment. So finally, we get a Tuesday game at 7 o'clock that I can, or anything other than those East Coast games for Salt City Hoops. But we're here. But we're here with a beer. So just getting it shared across to our various socials we got. Glad you're in here. Let's get talking about this Jazz victory today. I'm just thrilled to be here. This is going to be a lot of fun today. Got a lot of stuff to talk about. Sharing it across everything we can. Might as well put it there. And then I got to do the Slack channels. I'm on Slack channels. I'm in Discords. We're getting it all shared across everywhere. Can also join me on YouTube. So let's get this going in a moment. Almost done sharing it across some things. I know we posted on Twitter a little early, but it is what it is. We're going to be all right with this. Get everyone in as much as we can. On YouTube here. It's been a minute. I'm out of practice on getting the link share. Because I got to get everything open when we can. Oops. Get that going. Last one, I promise. Copy it over to Sports Ethos. We get Sports Ethos in here when we can. All right. Welcome in, everybody. I'm excited. Talk some fantasy stuff, too, when we get going. All right. Salt City Hoops, live, postcast, and beer. I got myself a little baby 4.8% porter today because we're not trying to completely run everything down on a Tuesday night at 7 o'clock. We're doing a different format for our postcast, as you can see. I'm able to kind of blow up the stats in real time. I'm sharing my screen on the left the best way I know how, which is hiding bookmark bars and toolbars and everything, but I'll probably end up showing my whole ass at some point doing screen share, but it is what it is. Utah Jazz, another comeback victory at home. They go into halftime with a deficit, 7-point deficit, and then they just roar back in the third quarter. A lot of credit is going to be given to that man, Chris Dunn, with a plus 18. And rightfully so. We're going to talk a lot about Chris Dunn today and his success and what made him so great today. But I also think that there was a zone deployed in the third quarter that worked out really well, except for allowing Chet Holmgren to kind of get going a little bit. But the zone was effective in a lot of other ways besides just the issues that were caused by Chet Holmgren going for three. But this was just a terrific performance from a lot of notable players today that I think deserve a lot of credit, especially for a game right before the trade deadline. And I want to remember that the trade deadline is, I think, 48 hours away. It'll be Thursday at 3 p.m. Eastern, so 1 p.m. Mountain for us Jazz fans. And the Jazz this is the last game before the NBA trade deadline for the Utah Jazz, because the Jazz schedule coming up is their next game is on Thursday night against the Suns. So this could be the last game in a Jazz uniform for a lot of our favorite players. One of them being Chris Dunn. He's on an expiring contract, could definitely contribute towards some winning basketball for some playoff teams, but also guys like John Collins, Kelly Olynyk, Colin Sexton, Jordan Clarkson. I think we're going to talk a lot about these guys who are contributing factors for a win today that also might have played their last game in a Jazz uniform. But great Jazz comeback at home, predicated by that third quarter comeback. You see the third quarter box score there, 35-24 half that we have there. I'm also going to make sure to log into Cleaning the Glass later, and we can take a look at some of the more advanced stats that I like to display and show and argue about. And just the energy that a guy like Chris Dunn is providing to the Jazz at a time when they desperately needed actual defense. You're allowing 68 points at halftime. How many times have we seen the Jazz just let up just a bazillion points by halftime? Right. And they needed actual defense, and Chris Dunn was able to provide it. Riley says, "What's up, man? Great win in YouTube. Love to see you in here, man. We'll get chatting about everything going on." And it was a great win today. I am extremely excited because when the Jazz win, it's always thrilling and exciting. Like, the Jazz don't win many boring games because they're not a dominant team, right? So there haven't been many blowouts this year, except when the Jazz are on the losing end. And the Jazz, they're at 500, and they really know how to make these wins exciting. So you see the box score there for the Jazz. Doesn't seem all that impressive when you look at 8 points for Chris Dunn, but then you see 3 rebounds, 5 assists, 4 steals, and 3 blocks, and a plus 18 with just 1 foul for Chris Dunn. I remarked when we were doing the live fourth quarter cast that SGA, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, had fewer free throws than he normally has, and he's a great free throw drawing player. That is one of his calling cards to getting as many points as he does. And it wasn't just Chris Dunn. I think a lot of players were great at not following him today, but the only player who was actually defending him well while not following was Chris Dunn. I think there was some in good team defense at points as well. The blocks were coming from the weak side. They were coming from behind players. He had one just straight up block on Lou Dort, and Lou Dort's got size on him. Lou Dort's both height and weight, and Lou Dort looked like he was actually going to get a fairly routine right side layup. And I don't understand Chris Dunn's wingspan, like off the top of my head, if it's some amazing wingspan, but he got all ball on a terrific block, and that contributes towards his amazing performance today. So also a very credible 2 of 5 from 3. So he was threatening out there. It wasn't just out there for no reason, right? And shooting shots that aren't going in. He was a credible 2 of 5 from 3. 3 of 8 from the field. Like, you would like him to be better than 1 of 3 from 2, but I think he had a couple of those shots could have easily went in. So I'm not too upset about a lot of that. And moving down the line towards the other players who deserve a lot of credit for a victory today, Number two, normally we get a guy who gets 33 and 11 and is a plus 15 with 12 of 18 shooting and 5 of 7 from three. That's normally a game ball winning player. And frankly, Lauri Markkanen was the best player on both ends of the floor for either team tonight. Like Lauri Markkanen was the best player on the floor. But for a game that went in this manner, when you're going to be down, or they were down 7 at halftime, and to get that sort of third quarter comeback plus 11 in the third quarter, and with the spiritual moments that he had, like this was a Chris Dunn performance tonight. And I think that's very important to really just internalize that, even though that Markkanen was the best player on either team tonight, which is stunning considering of SGA's presence, that this game is only won because of Chris Dunn's performance. And I'm finding it difficult to parse the words there of like what that means. How can the game ball go to the second best player on the team? What does that actually mean? And it really just depends on, could the Jazz have won without Lauri Markkanen? Absolutely not. But they definitely could not have won without Chris Dunn's performance either. So they both share like equal credit on what mattered for winning, I think. And I don't know, maybe it just feels spiritually cool to give it to the guy who maybe doesn't play 27 minutes a night every night. Like he's getting 12 minutes, 13 minutes, 19 minutes here and there. And tonight he's 27 minutes closing the game in place of Colin Sexton and Jordan Clarkson. Chris Dunn and Keontae George, by the way, closed the game. We'll talk about him as well. But a closing backcourt tonight of Dunn and George. And just like look at the egalitarian backcourt minutes, right? Sexton 26, Dunn 27, Clarkson 27, George 27. We did see Clarkson, Dunn, and a third guard out there for a few minutes with Clarkson playing, the ostensible tallest guy of the three. So we did get some 3-guard lineups there for a minute. That was in part because Ochai Agbaji was out, and I think you would see some 5th guard minutes from Ochai Agbaji kind of playing up a position and guarding some of Thunder's bevy of medium and medium-ish wings that they have, like the Aaron Wiggins of the world and Micic and all those kind of players. But I think that Luka Samanic was also quite ineffective today, and that definitely caused some forcing of the issue where you have Chris Dunn coming in playing and forcing Samanic to not get any second half minutes. So that's I think a quite important part of what we have today, that you're able to get these kind of 3-guard lineups at some point because Dunn was playing so incredibly well. And Luka Samanic, who was supposed to be taking those Agbaji minutes, was just completely dreadful. Both of his 3-point attempts clanged off the front of the rim. And not very effective. He did get 4 free throw attempts just kind of by just banging his body into people in the paint. But Samanic was not good in the 6 minutes. Anyways. So Markkanen just, it was everything you love about Lauri Markkanen from an offensive perspective and a defensive perspective. You have to love a guy who can shoot that efficiently from everywhere on the court. And he didn't really need to like have the ball in his hands and do a lot of dribbling or anything like that and force things that he's still learning how to do. That he's kind of a burgeoning talent when it comes to calling his own shot, but he had so many shots that were from holding the ball at the top of the arc or holding the ball at the top of the paint and kind of giving like a dribble feint or putting a shoulder into somebody and attempting like a long 2 because he can, right? And he has that sort of elevated verticality to just shoot over guys against like a Cason Wallace or a Aaron Wiggins if they got the switch. And I thought that was extremely effective from Lauri there. We'll take a look at a shot chart in a moment. That's actually not a bad thing to gin up once we get done with the box score here. I want to look at cleaning the glass stats, and we're going to look at Markkanen's shot chart. John Collins, a guy that I absolutely deride all of the time. He's a -2 tonight, but And a -2 in a 7-point win is not the greatest performance, but he had very, very poor stretches and he had absolutely incredible stretches. He had a very good two-man game with Kelly Olynyk for a lot of the third quarter. Kelly Olynyk also a -2, not his greatest night in a 7-point win. 22-9 though, an efficient 22-9 was that does explain John Collins tonight. Those were not empty stats. Those were very useful stats. Those were useful things for that we needed from John Collins at all the right moments too, because of Dunn's performance and because of kind of how Walker Kessler was playing at the end of the game too. Walker Kessler also closed the game, which in only 21 minutes was surprising. Kessler did not have the greatest first half, but he was a unbelievable in the second half. He was prime Walker Kessler. Uh, Normally, I would deride riding John Collins as much as Hardy tends to do, and I would like John Collins to be of more of like the 15 to 25-minute variety of guy, while we give more opportunities to Walker Kessler for all of the obvious reasons. We don't need to state it all the time because Collins has not been an effective defender, and he's not as effective offensively as you would hope. But tonight, he was adept at so much. He had a lot more bounce. He had a lot more. His decision making was really, really fast tonight. That's always going to be my barometer for guys that I'm kind of iffy on, like John Collins, Jordan Clarkson, those kind of players. If they're making decisions fast, I almost don't care if the ball goes in because you're keeping the ball moving in a positive way instead of record scratching what we have going on defensively or offensively. And defensively, he was kind of adequate. I think that's kind of the big issue is like he didn't have the verticality to uh, uh, address some of the Chet Holmgren actions. And he was a little spacey and a little slow on some of the zone actions. So I didn't really love him defensively. But this was one of John Collins' best games in a long time. The activity was good and his attention was good. I really, really enjoyed watching John Collins tonight, which has not usually been the case. Might be John Collins' last game in a Jazz uniform. We'll talk about some trades perhaps in a little bit. Walker Kessler mentioned him at his second half defense. There was one, I forget who attempted the layup, but the Jazz were in a zone and Walker Kessler was out kind of guarding quite a bit in space, kind of marking Chet Holmgren along the perimeter on the baseline. And Kessler's head is completely not at the rim at all. And the ball gets to maybe Lou Dort or maybe it was Cason Wallace. I really want to take a look at it. There was no chance that Kessler was going to get that block. All of a sudden, he whips his head around and boom, he's at the rim. And I can't wait to see a replay of that. I really want to see if we can pull that up now. Let's go over to my our personal Twitter here and see if the Jazz have tweeted this out because I think this is worth a replay to take a look at. Because this block was just we should go over all these highlights. These were all incredible. This is the one. Okay. So Holmgren's got the ball. This is something I forgot. I thought the ball was at the top of the arc, getting in. There was an entry pass, and Kessler was marking Holmgren along the perimeter. But what happens here? Kessler, he's got 2 feet outside of the paint, and his head is not looking at the rim whatsoever. And then all of a sudden, there's a great pass from Holmgren, a nice bullet pass inside. Look at where Kessler is. And then this pass is all the way to the other side of the paint, right? Not completely out of the paint, but definitely like, not next to him. And looking at it live, I thought this for sure was going to be a layup. And who is this? Usman Jiang or this is Kenrich Williams. And it's not even just a block. It's an easy block, almost a goaltending, but that's a real block. He's out of the picture. What a block. That was just absolutely nuts that I had just a blast watching. I wish there was a broadcast angle of it. So I forget where if we have a better example of it. But this block was just I lost my shit. So that is the story that we have on on the Walker Kessler block. So yeah, we had nice John Collins finish here. I'm getting distracted by great highlights. This Olynyk pick and roll with John Collins was pretty terrific. I had a great time. So, yeah, that was Kessler's night. Had a great block second half. I'm thinking the first half he was kind of I said he was aimlessly moving around. I think he was kind of jumping at ghosts, and he had a couple fouls that were unfortunate. But that's okay. He had a great second half. 21 minutes plus 2. Wish he played more, as always. 9 rebounds, 2-2 from the field. Did not really need to attempt a whole lot, but he was great. Colin Sexton, not his great game defensively or offensively. I think he had one terrific free throw or 3-point attempt in Holmgren's face in the first quarter that was really fun. He drew a couple really nice fouls, including one and one. This was a fine Colin Sexton night, and it just wasn't his greatest defensively, and he was really getting taken advantage of quite a bit by the taller and longer SGA, and we really didn't have any answers for SGA until we had Chris Dunn kind of marking him defensively. So no real fault to Colin Sexton. It's just kind of like when Dunn is out there marking SGA, you really need Sexton to be more effective on this. So I appreciate what we were able to do from Colin Sexton. It's just from offensively a little bit, but I do think his defense was part of the reason he only played 26 minutes tonight and didn't close the game. Fontecchio kind of a non-factor, had a couple really rugged rebounds that were important, but Fontecchio closed the game in place of John Collins. Interestingly, it had to just been like a lineup spacing kind of a thing, because I really do believe that John Collins is he's not quite the spacer that you want him to be, that you expect him to be. He was only 1 of 4 from 3 today. And Fontecchio closed the game in place of him, but I don't really have a problem with him getting 25 minutes. And I thought his defense against, the Thunder role players, you can mark them defensively with a guy with a rugged defender like Fontecchio. You really have problems with the Holmgren, Jalen Williams, and SGA, and those guys require superb defensive talents to mark them. And Jalen Williams, I don't know exactly how he finished today, but he was terrific. I thought he was absolutely taking it to Utah. 26, 5 and 5 with 3 threes for Jalen Williams, the good Jalen Williams, the non-foul drawing bullshit Jalen Williams, charge drawing bullshit Jalen Williams, the good one. I loathe Arkansas Jalen Williams with. He might be my least favorite player in the NBA. I don't think Jalen Williams and Kenrich Williams, I don't think either of them drew a charge today, which is stunning. I think they're the 2 leaders in the NBA for drawing charges, and I don't think they drew a single one today, which was absolutely refreshing to watch. There was one point where John Collins got the ball with his back to the basket, and Arkansas Jalen Williams is behind him, and John Collins takes a step back with the basketball, right? Just a little post dribble. And that always results in Jalen Williams flopping like a fish to the ground, trying to draw a charge. And he always gets it. But I was stunned that Jalen Williams did not actually fall to the ground on the flop. And John Collins did a simple little spin move for a shot attempt that I believe he definitely got fouled by Jalen Williams. And I think he made the bucket as well for an and one. So those are my thoughts on Arkansas Jalen Williams. Maybe worth talking about when I've had a few more beers. So, rest of the team, Keontae George, he is absolutely hunting and turning it on the second half of the year here. His 3-point shot looks great. It's a little flat, it's a little line drivey, but he has confidence and he has great elevation on his shot. And I think his shot form looks really consistent from shot to shot. It doesn't have that rugged square up like Donovan Mitchell always had, that was always so impressive to watch. But he does have a consistent shooting form, both off the dribble and catch and shoot. He had a beautiful, I thought, man, my favorite Keontae George shot tonight. A lot of people are going to say it was the off the dribble 3 from the top of the arc, where someone might have gotten in his landing space and he fell over. Total momentum shift. Great 3 from Keontae. But my favorite one was when he really shut the door in Oklahoma City after that, where he was on the right, not quite all the way to the corner, but he was on the right wing. towards the corner, and he pump fake, took a big left dribble, and nailed the three from that. It was just a very, very mature shot awareness performance of a shot, and I just really appreciated that. That was my favorite one because it shut the door on the whole game. It was great. The shot before that, where he fell over, that gave Utah a 1-point lead, and that was also pretty sweet. But then Utah gave up a three on the other end, so it was a little difficult to stomach. This was he was great defensively. He was actually Keontae George is executing a lot of these zone defenses a lot better than he was 3 months ago. And that goes for the whole team. Like the zone defense takes a lot of trust and learning each other and figuring out the reactions to things. But he's also making vocal calls out of where to rotate and where he needs to be. So I think Keontae George's zone defense is really improving. And it's going to take him several years to be a competent on-ball defender. And maybe he'll always kind of be taken advantage of. What you care about is that he tries. And he is really trying on these zone defense concepts because you can't execute these zone defenses unless everybody's trying. Even if you're really shitty at defense and you're kind of slow to react or whatever, if you're trying and you have the right brain for it, you can execute a zone defense even with poor defenders. That's kind of the whole point. It masks some of your deficiencies. And Keontae, he's really working at it on his responsibilities, and I appreciated his game tonight. Jordan Clarkson, it was a bad Jordan Clarkson game. Had a bunch of awful turnovers in the first half. But he ended up having a shot or two when it mattered, and he had a couple. He's credited with 0 blocks today. I thought he had 2. I could have sworn that he had a couple blocks today. Maybe they credited it elsewhere. They thought it was a steal instead. But not as great night. We're going to wash it away. This might be the last time we see Jordan Clarkson. Might have to have an ode to Jordan Clarkson at some time. So that's the rundown of the Jazz performance tonight. I kind of like to go player by player and kind of identify the new things, the old things, the things to talk about. Let's click around to quickly. I want to see Lauri Markkanen's shot chart. So the easiest place I go is just NBA.com. And check out because I just think that their shot chart's pretty clean to look at. Shot charts. Let's go to Markkanen here. And so normally Markkanen's shot chart is not this spread out. Like you usually see a lot more in the paint, and you don't see a lot of these mid-range shots, but he was attempting a lot of these little paint plus shots, outside the restricted area. And these 2 shots from the long mid-range, they were silky cool, man. It was really cool to watch. And a lot of these 3-point attempts around the perimeter, you see he's 5 of 7 from 3 today. It doesn't take him very long to get this shot up at all. Just beautiful to watch. And just these interior scores, though, he just has the height, the physicality to really muscle it through. I don't know if his free throw attempts were today. 4 of 4 from the free throw line. Prime Lauri Markkanen, you want that to be around 8-9 free throw attempts. But who needs 9 free throw attempts when you're going 12 of 18 from 3 anyway? Right? Like he didn't need a lot of the interior paint presence. Didn't draw a lot of fouls from Chet Holmgren as I would have hoped. He had 4 fouls he had 3 fouls towards the end of the third quarter, but he didn't draw a foul for the rest of the game. And so you didn't see a lot from Lauri Markkanen really forcing the issue and drawing free throws. Could have been a little bit better, but I thought he was effective. Also, this might be Kelly Olynyk's last game. We didn't get to talk about Kelly Olynyk. Forgot Kelly Olynyk, as one does. So let's take him. He's the one guy I think is probably the most likely to be traded. Or most useful likely player to be traded, because we might unload a Talen Horton-Tucker or something. But Kelly Olynyk, kind of a rough thing to take for Jazz fans to acquire Kelly Olynyk, and I think it was like a garbage second-round pick from Detroit in exchange for Bojan Bogdanovic. Bojan Bogdanovic had multiple heroic performances for Utah. Playoff performer, Bojan Bogdanovic. who liked being in Utah, and trading him for a player who is on the wrong end of the rebuilding development curve. And if you were a neutral NBA fan, you tended to loathe watching Kelly Olynyk's game, drawing charges. He had the incident where he uh, had a little tussle with Kevin Love that didn't, look great on Kelly Olynyk. He's got the weird hair. He's got the weird facial hair. He's Canadian. He's kind of slow. He passes funny. He shoots funny. He's just kind of an awkward watch on the court, and frankly, kind of annoying. And last year, I had a real problem with Kelly Olynyk a lot, in part because Utah's rebounding issues were abysmal. And Lauri Markkanen was doing okay, but Walker Kessler wasn't quite on the scene yet. Jared Vanderbilt is what I call a fake good rebounder, right? He didn't really affect how Utah performed rebounding wise. So we're playing the 7-footer in Kelly Olynyk, who's getting, we're playing a 25, 30 minutes a game. And he's getting 3 rebounds, 2 rebounds, 4 rebounds. And he has his obvious limitations defensively because he doesn't protect the rim, and he doesn't have like Jokic hands where he's effective as a defender even if he's not blocking shots. That's not Kelly Olynyk's game. And so it was very frustrating to watch last year when the Jazz were all of a sudden starting to win games, and they would lose games because of Kelly Olynyk's deficiencies. Of course, he has that one win against New Orleans last year. I don't think I'll ever forget this, where he takes CJ McCollum off the dribble to win the game at the end of a shot clock. He gets the ball at the top of the arc, and the play was not designed, this game-winning play was not designed for Kelly Olynyk to take somebody off the dribble and get the bucket. But he gets the ball off the inbound pass with 6 seconds left or whatever, and his primary options to pass to, like Lauri Markkanen, are completely covered. And because of the action behind or in front of Kelly Olynyk, New Orleans had switched their actions enough to prevent the passes that all of a sudden he had CJ McCollum in front of him. So Kelly Olynyk drives on CJ McCollum and gets halfway to the basket because he's not going to actually beat him or outmuscle him. Frankly, he's also not as strong as someone his size should be. But he ends up flinging up this shot that only Kelly Olynyk can confidently make. It's the Kelly Olynyk special, where he looks like he's just flinging the fucking thing at the rim, and it has no prayer of going in. But he knows what he's doing, and he has a real feathery touch with some of these flinging shots. And just, I'll never forget that Kelly Olynyk game winner. And so I just got really frustrated with Olynyk last year. And then, of course, there was a game where Utah was actively trying to lose, and Kelly Olynyk is just hucking up 3-pointers, and they kept going in. And then Utah won. Like he hucked up at that one shot that just – I really think if you didn't know any better, you would have thought he is intentionally trying to miss this shot. And it just slammed the back of the backboard. He shot the shot from like 29 feet out, and it just slammed the backboard and just went right in the basket. It was such a bullshit shot that it had no reason to go in, and it did. And this year I've taken a lot more appreciation for Olynyk. I mean, in part because we went into this season knowing that so start with last season. You have Mike Conley, and he's the passer, he's the point guard, right? And you can bring in guys like Taylor Horton-Tucker off the bench, or Nickeil Alexander-Walker off the bench, and you can cobble together some credible passing. And plus having Olynyk out there as well, like you had a decent passing team. And this year, we kind of knew going in, because we had no idea who Keontae George was. We knew what Chris Dunn's limitations were. We super knew what Jordan Clarkson's limitations were. And we didn't know what side of the development that Colin Sexton was going to take. Is he actually going to become some sort of credible passer? I thought he would be. Turns out he's not. Like, Colin Sexton's always going to be Colin Sexton, I guess. Anyways, we went into the season knowing that Olynyk was the only player on the team that was a plus passer for his position, right? Is he the best passer on the team? I mean, he might be. But as far as the other guys, like, yeah, Jordan Clarkson, Keontae George, Chris Dunn, we all know that they can pass the basketball and set up people. But for their position, they're all below average for their position. Even Chris Dunn, like, is not. He's a credible passing point guard, and he can execute some basic stuff. But you want a lot more passing skill out of your point guard. Chris Dunn is a charitably average passer for his position, whereas Kelly Olynyk is genuinely a positive passer compared to other players who play power forward center. So we knew a lot of Utah's credibility as an opponent night to night was going to depend on just Kelly Olynyk playing good, sound basketball, regardless of what deficiencies he had. And it took us a while to figure out that pairing Kelly Olynyk with Walker Kessler as much as possible was going to be the key to limiting Olynyk's limiting his limitations, right? And Hardy figured that out. We all kind of knew it ahead of time, but you have a weird front court rotation. Like, how do you get Kessler and Olynyk out there with Markkanen and John Collins? There's still more I think we could do to tweak the rotation and get more of Markkanen, Olynyk, and Kessler out there together. Something that just isn't done very often, or frankly should just be done more. Right? Like, it doesn't need to be Fontecchio as the three. You can have an Olynyk and a Markkanen, or you can have a Markkanen and John Collins out there with Walker Kessler. Anyways, Kelly Olynyk, I really appreciate him this year. He's trying to draw fewer charges. His foul rate's still really high, and I think Olynyk commits really dumb, stupid fouls caused by just reaching for stuff. I think his slow offensive antics, where he's like barely moving out there, he gets smacked in the face. He gets smacked. He gets raked across in the arms all the time, and he definitely draws fouls, but he's moving so slowly that the refs don't call it. He got nailed across the face today on one of his shot attempts. He belongs on a championship contending team where he can go out there for 12 minutes. He can go out there for 8 minutes or 28 minutes and contribute to turning a series. He still is that quality of player. He does that for Utah, and I'm gonna miss him. Utah will be fine without him. I could take him or leave him, like, going forward, but when he's not on Utah, like, we're gonna feel the pain on some of those lineups that don't have him in it with limited passing. Like, if we have a bench lineup, that would then be Keontae George, Jordan Clarkson, maybe Ochai Agbaji. Insert 4 here, like maybe we keep a Fontecchio in at the 4, a John Collins, and Walker Kessler. That team cannot pass. Keontae George is learning, but if we're saying that the best passer of that lineup is a rookie point guard with no Kelly Olynyk out there, that's gonna struggle from an offensive kind of engine standpoint. So as the player most likely to be traded, I hope we get some good assets for Kelly Olynyk. I think it's worth talking about more as the trade deadline comes in. I think Thursday would be great to talk about the trade deadline if we have some availability to talk about that. But he would probably be the most likely person to get traded. So that's the Salt City Hoops live postcast. I just wanted to quickly talk about those things a little bit. I don't think we'll touch cleaning the glass here tonight. I'm kind of feel like I'm getting under the weather a little bit. I'm going to finish my beer, catch the end of this TNT game a little bit. But I just wanted to get online for a little bit because I haven't done this in a while. Because the schedule is they've been on this East Coast road trip, and they've been on this with playing Central Time and Eastern Time games, and I can't do a live game I can't do a live postcast if the game is ending at 7:30, 8 o'clock, right? Like I got to put my kids to bed and everything. So I can, and I don't like to do postcasts if I haven't been able to watch at least 3/4 of the game, which can be a struggle. So when they're doing all these road trip stuffs, and I can't do Thursdays most times. So it's just been a weird schedule where Utah's played a lot of Tuesday, Thursdays this month. So hopefully we can close out the season doing more of these because I have a lot of fun doing them and having a beer with you. And with that said, have a great Tuesday night. We'll catch you Thursday, and we'll have a fun little trade deadline. Hopefully Utah makes some good moves. All right. Good night. Salt City Hoops.